China has taken interesting steps to ward off its perceived threat from India. Last year, during a wedding I attended in California, my new Indian relatives seemed quite concerned with the presence of Chinese troops in Pakistan. The presence of Chinese troops in Lahore was troubling. In fact, it is obvious now how it was that Chinese engineers could be swiftly brought on the scene when the helicopter was lost during the Bin Laden raid. China has maintained 3,000 to 4,000 Chinese construction troops in Pakistan, ostensibly to help with flooding in that country, although the flooding has long since ceased. They remain and deeply trouble India's generals. It doesn't take much imagination to realize construction troops are great at building tarmacs and roads in general, with a specialty in military roads. The Chinese troops are stationed in the Pakistani region of Azad Kashmir. These troops have been stationed in Pakistan at least as far back as September of 2010. The implied threat of Chinese troops in Lahore may be in response to Indian oil exploration in the South China Sea, long regarded as under the purview of China, at least as far as the Chinese are concerned. In the past, the South China Sea was ignored as anything other than fishing grounds and a pirate's lair by the region's giants. But the presence of oil has completely changed the dynamics of Lake China. China is no longer ignoring its neighborhood. Another consideration of equal value is simply the Chinese overwhelming desire for stability. She wants stability in the South China Sea, and she wants her oil. Her neighbors can either be with them or against them. What would a Chinese Monroe Doctrine look like, really? It was expressed by Christensen that the financial crisis of the United States has made it imperative to the Chinese leadership to strengthen domestic stability. Looking to domestic needs first, rather than designing an economy around the wants, wishes, and desires of a foreign market, may be undergoing a reevaluation. The priorities of the Chinese leadership may be looking inward first and outward in relationship to that inward glance. Why should satisfying foreign interests come before the needs of the Chinese people? One would think there is no clash between the two goals, but apparently there just may be. How this dynamic is resolved may still require rethinking by the engineers running the government, who have so successfully crafted China's fabulous successes. Giving the military a fuller hand, however, may signal a tightening of policy with a China first emphasis, both domestically and in regional affairs. The darker consideration is, of course, that the weakened United States economy may simply equal a demotion of the voices of the careful engineers who have crafted the miracle of a rising China. The engineers, like the proponents of the Weimar Republic, may have just had their day if the Chinese economy goes south with the rest of us. Will it then be said that those engineers catered to the foreigners over the interests of China? We actually don't want that question asked anytime in the future. We simply do not. And we are not interested if it is a valid question to ask. We just don't want there to exist a situation where it might be asked. In the final analysis, the United States, under the present and changing state of affairs, may need to think seriously about salvaging its friendship with China, especially before the new premier and president take office. The president apparent is Xi Jinping from the People's Liberation Army. The new premier will be Li Keqiang. We will be a world away from Hu Jintao, one of those careful engineers. If we do not remedy our friendship with China, it will be a clear signal raising the temperature in a rising China. Our own self-interest and fate may be bound up with reassessing our relationship with China and attempting to give greater weight to accord rather than discord. Are our present allegiances in Asia passé, construed at the time of a long-ago war? Or are we loyal because we are friends, and friendship trounces the transient nature of politics? The examination of alliances, like the examination of conscience, must be consciously made and reckoned, with truth and honor guiding the way. How these past alliances are either benefiting the 21st century American fate or not must be considered. But of no doubt, these alliances are the elephant in the room when dealing with China. And even worse, they may very well be the white elephant in the room, or simply a matter of an ambivalence of honor, which is not so simple in and of itself. A great significance is placed by the Chinese on the South China Sea. Nations like the Philippines are apparently feeling a wrenching motion, coming from rethinking its own attitude towards China. The Philippine leadership, especially after the closing of American bases, is apparently reconsidering its relationship with China. Does the Philippine government think it smells blood in the water? Does it think that America is diminished in its power, as represented by her weakened economy? Or are the Filipinos simply being practical? Is she simply accepting the reality of that exhibited in the Pan-Asia vision of China, spiffing up the notion of the old co-prosperity sphere? Of course, we won't know the outcome for quite some time, but the change brought by a new vision of Asia is definitely a consideration. China's neighbors may be undergoing a distinct sea change, and not for the better, as far as affecting the fate of the American business community. If Southeast Asia offers a better and easier route for China to build her power and trade interests, it doesn't take much to realize, as Heidi Klum is fond of saying, that when you're in, and when you're out, you're really out. What does the young Filipino know or even care about the American liberation of the Philippines? Once upon a time, anyway. I don't think they care if my father was a prisoner of war in Southeast Asia and fought to redeem the Philippine Islands back from the Japanese. Simply put, the Philippines might offer China a bouncier dance card than Miss America might. It might just boil down to a simpler choice: to ally its fortunes with a rising China, or to continue the waltz with a distant, diminished America. China does offer a less doughty choice than dealing with the Americans, who seem to twist in the wind with each election cycle. Additionally, the great and powerful consideration is the distinct possibility that the Koreas unite. Japan, Taiwan, and China may end up making nice after thousands of years. We're left with the Olympus East Asia as a united consortium. Fortunately, that hasn't happened. Fortunately, it is not likely to happen. Fortunately, the United States may still consider that a relationship with China is better to have than not. Misunderstandings might be cleared up. Pan-Asianism, accepted like the Monroe Doctrine, is just one of those things that are expected and don't really interfere with business anyway. We're still friends with Europe after all. Or are we?